fire, crashes and a battle between two champions in the OIDC 2024 final. Hello, this is Grinya and today we're going to talk about the final of the Oman International Drift Championship season 2024. Let's roll! After a bright start to the year and the bold second stage of OIDC 2024, no one knew what to expect from the final. The most important thing is that the drivers didn't waste the week between stages for nothing and got their cars in order. If you remember, I managed to count 13 crashes only in the initiation zone of the second stage. It was especially interesting to look at the cars of Ali Maksib and James Dean after their strong collision in the semi-finals. Restoring a car to perfect condition in a week after such an impact is almost impossible, but Maksib almost succeeded. James Dean's team had an easier time dealing with the appearance of the car since his S14.9 has carbon Kevlar elements, but they had to work on the chassis rear part of the Silvia. However, the first practice runs showed that the car might not be perfect, but James Dean has enough skill to use the maximum potential of his car. Already here in Muscat, I managed to walk around the paddock and see which drivers use which tires. Remember, the novelty of the season was the permission of 285mm tires. However, not all drivers wanted to use this size. You might think that someone simply didn't have enough power to turn the Valino to 85mm tires, but as it turned out, the variety of tire sizes and brands allowed drivers to form a tactic that they applied on the track. The new asphalt of the Oman Automobile Association track turned out to be unstable in grip, especially after lengthy practices before the stages and the stages themselves. Mixed with the rubber applied to it, it created difficult conditions for races. Even James Dean complained about this in his vlog. Later in practice, I noticed that James was experimenting between 265 and 285 tires. So what's the difference? The 285mm tire allows you to be as fast as possible, use almost the entire potential of the car's wheel lock kit, but has side effects in the form of too sharp car behavior and no right to make a mistake with any throttle plunger, which means it becomes very difficult to drive behind slightly slower opponents. The 265mm tire allows for a more flexible approach, but the difference in speed with guys on 285mm tires needs to be compensated with the shallow line, a little less angle, and of course the driver's skill. In addition, the left turn was brought back as it was in the first stage, and I also already on site figured out what was the problem with the configuration of the right turn and what led to such a large number of crashes in the second stage. The whole difference was in the distance from the scoring zone to the wall. In the configuration of the first and third stages, there is only 3-5 meters more to the fence made of plastic blocks, rubber and concrete, and that is precisely the zone that drivers pass if they make a mistake on the initiation. Thus, in case of an error in the first and third stages, the drivers were faced with a penalty in points from the judges, while in a similar error in the configuration of the second stage, there was most likely contact with the wall. But, according to the drivers, the sandwich of plastic, rubber and concrete was very soft and pleasant until someone caught up with you from behind, and I don't want to point at Maksib and Dean. One more interesting fact about the track, and let's move on to the race. The track looks beautiful in the drone shots, doesn't it? These stylish bright blue track borders look very cool. There's just one thing, that blue paint is waterproof, and as the temperature drops, especially after sunset, minor moisture accumulates on it. What does this mean? Exactly, do not drive on the blue lines, it's slippery as... it's just slippery there. That's it, let's move on to the race, and the first surprise awaited us already in the qualification. James Dean showed in the first two stages that he has no equal in the qualifications, although Ahmed Daham put this into question during the second stage. In the second qualifying attempt, Dean quickly reclaimed the lead. The third stage became even more interesting, although in the first attempt only Fontaine and Rintanen joined James Dean in the 90-plus points club, and Dean surely headed this club with 95 points. In the second attempt, first Nicholas Bertens makes a run for 96.3 points, then Benedictus Chirber surpasses Dean and gets 95.3 points, and James in his second attempt repeats Chirber's result with 95.3 points, but since he had more for the first attempt, he ends up only in second place in qualifications. The winner of the qualification turns out to be NIKNAK, and that's on 265mm tires, so this tactic works, and winning the qualification promises an easy top 32. The top 32 bracket seemed even more predictable than in the first stages. All the strong drivers are high in the qualifications, so all the intrigues will start from the top 16. On closer inspection, NIKNAK seemed to have a fairly easy race to the top 4, and all the strong opponents gathered in the right side of the bracket with James Dean, who took second place in the qualification. But for the umpteenth time, I say this is the Oman International Drift Championship. Predictions here do not work. There are too many variables. The top 32 opens with the pair NIKNAK versus Han Bin. Nicholas easily gains a pace that is very difficult for Han to match, but before the last clip-in zone, NIKNAK goes too wide, tries to use the angle to bring himself back to the correct line, and almost in full lock enters the blue line. And what did we determine about the blue lines? Right, it's slippery there, and NIKNAK spins out. The only hope for a mistake by Bin as a leader, but although he was not ideal going off the track, it still scored at least some points. NIKNAK, with his 0 for the first run, had no chance even for one more time. The winner of the qualification drops out in the very first run, opening up interesting opportunities for the other competitors in this bracket of the competition. Top 32 also turned out to be unlucky for the second Latvian driver, Edgars Krageris. Having an advantage in the first run against his opponent Hamdan Bulzai, Krageris, as the chaser, allows contact after the first clip-in zone. This contact adds inertia to the leader, but the leader makes a mistake only after the transition, ending up with all 4 wheels outside the track. This is 0, and it was necessary to find out who is to blame for such a result. As the judges explained to me at the driver's briefing, it was said that in this part of the track the leader needs to go on a narrow line, and for this it is allowed to close the throttle without reducing the pace of the run. Thus, after reviewing the replays from different angles, the judges concluded that the blame for what happened was on Edgars Krageris, and Bulzai passes to the top 16. Okay, but over several races prior to this, in the battle between Ihab Falah and Robert Babagulan, in a similar situation the leader was found at fault for contact. Again, the lack of a microphone on the judges' tower for the instant clarification of controversial situations left many questions about these 2 rounds among the drivers. There's room for improvement. But if you missed the crashes from the second stage, they were also present in the top 32. First, Aldaji tested the softness of the wall, and then Riyad Mapsali in the Supra AAT made a jump into the same wall. I don't know how soft that wall is, but Aldaji couldn't make it out for the second run after contact with the wall. In the top 16, NIKNAK opened interesting perspectives for participants in his part of the bracket. And without any issues, Hazal Hassani made it all the way to the top 4 from his part. On the bottom left side of the bracket, the opposition was more serious, and apart from the OIDC 2023 champion Ali Maksid, who drove very confidently, especially after repairing his car after the crash with Dean in the second stage, Linus Joensuu was remembered for the unexpected fire of his car, very quick extinguishing of this fire, and almost immediate departure to the start against Chris Brady to finish their battle. Chris Brady still won, but the well-coordinated work of the track marshals was appreciated by everyone. On the right side of the bracket, everything was much more complicated. James Dean, to my surprise, started to make small mistakes, which were immediately used by Nasir Al-Harbali in the role of the chaser. But after switching roles, Dean again proves his nickname Machine and becomes the shadow of the leader. Well, if there were no problems approaching close to the burning Al-Harbali in the first stage, then Dean does it without problems to a regular car. The best runs of the top 16 were the battle between Clint Van Oort and Juha Rintanen. The judges had to analyze the runs in detail to determine the winner. However, from this beautiful battle, the winner turned out to be Clint Van Oort. And if we have figured out that Hazal Hassani and Ali Maksud made it to the top 4 from the left side of the bracket, then the right side of the bracket was still undecided, and the top 8 battles were expected to be very interesting. James Dean against Ahmad Daham, the battle that was supposed to take place in the final of the second stage. 2 leaders in the championship, and a ghostly chance at the championship title for Daham in case of a victory over Dean. And the drivers didn't disappoint us. The first battle was very close in the result. Dean makes a mistake by leaving the track, but Daham also makes similar mistakes. The judges make the decision one more time. The drivers show even more aggressive drift, fewer mistakes, closer distance, more sharp transitions, very beautiful runs. The judges have no choice but to send the drivers for another one more time. According to the rules, only 2 one more times are allowed in one pair of participants. If it is not possible to determine the strongest, the driver with the better qualification proceeds to the next stage of the competition. Nervous, right? But not for our drivers. Both show the best runs of the entire championship. Usually on the second one more time someone makes a mistake, but not these two. Close, smoky, aggressive, both runs of this battle pass, but the judges can determine the winner. And it becomes James Dean. In the battle between Clint Van Oort and Benedictus Chirba, Van Oort's mistake in the last clipping zone forces him to drop the pace because of this. Chirba makes contact and spins out, thus Benedictus Chirba proceeds to the top 4. Well, here we go again with the potential Middle East versus Europe showdown. On the left side of the bracket, Al Hassani and Maksud were to decide who goes to the final and who will represent the Middle East in the fight for 3rd place. On the right side, the same question was to be decided by Dean and Chirba for the representation of Europe. I will probably send you to watch the very interesting battle between the 2 overly aggressive drivers Ali Maksud and Hassan Al Hassani on this hint, where you can watch the entire race in fast-forward mode. Only action, no breaks, ads or delays. However, I still have to tell you the result of this battle. Ali Maksud proceeds to the final. Hazal Hassani will compete for the 3rd place. On the right side of the bracket, James Dean also had an interesting battle with Benedictus Chirba, which you can also watch in the only action version. The most interesting awaited us in the battle for 3rd place and the final. Hazal Hassani and Benedictus Chirba showed such a hot run with door banging and aggressive drifting that by the end of the run, Al Hassani's car actually caught fire. An emergency rush to the paddock, teammate Al Harbali jumps under the car and simply saws off the exhaust of Al Hassani's car. Was that even allowed? Just to throw out the exhaust, and all this within 5 minutes. Al Hassani at the start, and the battle with Chirba continues. The absence of the exhaust didn't affect Al Hassani's driving style at all, but he still makes some mistakes in the role of the leader. A very good run, but as usual, they do not inform us of the result. We will only find out at the award ceremony. The final, and everyone held their breath. Just a week ago, this very same pair almost destroyed their 2 cars. James Dean against Ali Maksud, former champion of 2023, Maksud against the newly crowned champion, James Dean, as no one could catch up with Dean in points after his victory over Daham. There were, of course, statements that this race was the last in the Middle East season and we won't spare the cars, but it seems a slight vestige of last week's events still remain. It was nice to watch good, beautiful drift from the 2 champions, but only James Dean showed more aggression and pressure. Again, the result will be announced only at the podium, but it was clear by the end of the battle. Before we move on to the awards ceremony, I send you again to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and share this video on your social networks. It will greatly help us with promoting drift content. Thank you. The race results in the national standings of Oman: 3rd place Riyad Mapsali, 2nd place Ahmed Al Amri, 1st place Tariq Al Shayhani. The results in the Middle East and North Africa standings: third place Haza Al Hassani, second place Ahmad Daham, first place Ali Maksid. The results in the overall driving standings: third place Benedictus Chirba, second place Ali Maksid, and again first place James the Machine Dean. But since the championship has also come to the end, we can award the winners of the year. Championship results in the national standings of Oman: third place Riyad Mapsali, second place Tariq Al Shaykhani, first place Ahmed Al Lamri. Results in the Middle East and North Africa standings: third place Ahmed Al Lamri, second place Ali Maksid, first place Ahmad Daham. Results in the overall driver standings: third place Juha Rintinen, second place Ahmed Daham, and first place, oh, you would never guess, surprise, surprise, James the Machine Dean. This was a wonderful season, honestly. I could have watched a couple more rounds, but it is precisely this feeling with which we will spend the next 10 months waiting for the Oman International Drift Championship 2025. Higher level, more drivers, fiercer battles. I'm sure all this awaits us next season. In the meantime, a huge thanks to the Oman Automobile Association for yet another magnificent OIDC season, and of course a big thanks to all of you guys for following the championship. You can still find me on YouTube. This was Grinya. Take care and see you in some other videos.